So, ladies and gentlemen, Accolonn here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. I am, as always, very, very happy to be here. Welcome back to another episode of The Shill Show. It is, of course, episode number 6. Again, last week was episode 6, but we couldn't do last week because the internet went down, so this week is episode 6. Hopefully the internet isn't going to give us too much trouble today. That really is the hope. I hope that we can at least get through a single Shill show without internet problems. I tested the internet literally this afternoon for about an hour. It seemed fine. I had no massive drops, no massive spikes to the point where the internet just shut down. So hopefully, this is indicative of a new bright future that we may be holding on to. I want to apologize from the start for yesterday. We were supposed to go live yesterday. I'm well aware of that. But yesterday, the internet wasn't good. So they made a couple of changes today. Apparently, they've made some changes. It seems like it's working. So we'll stick with that for now, right? And then we'll complain when something goes wrong again. Anyways, we have quite a full show. Now, I'm not going to go through the things that I had planned for last week, except for one thing, and that is the Ian and the Holly interview, because I do actually think that was a really, really good interview, and I was planning on making a video about that interview, but I completely forgot. So we're going to be covering it now, because I really do think there's some really cool shit within that interview that I think we can definitely talk about, and that I think you guys would love to know about. Now, of course, this week or last week was a really exciting week. We had the Blue Dragonflight questline open up. I, of course, did it. I loved it so much that I uploaded both the Blue Dragon questline as well as the Terragosa's Rest questline to my YouTube completely unhindered. I cut out all of the gameplay stuff and I literally just showed you the story because I really do think it was one of the best quest lines that Blizzard have ever had in World of Warcraft, from a sort of character progression standpoint, from a story progression standpoint. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't there hasn't been moments in World of Warcraft where there's been really cool quest lines. Suramar comes to mind. The Nightborn quest lines, the Withered quest lines were also really, really good. Legion actually in general had a couple of really good quest lines. Even Battle for Azeroth had a couple of really good quest lines. The Ravendreth quest lines, for example, comes to mind again as being relatively decent quest lines from back in the day. But all of those quest lines suffered from what I would call World of Warcraft's biggest story problem, and that is gameplay first. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be the one to advocate for World of Warcraft becoming Final Fantasy XIV. I actually had this conversation a few times in the comment section on my videos where people were like, oh my god, if WoW could just stop being more like Final Fantasy XIV, the way they handle their story, it would be perfect. And it's like, well, actually, that is a very high risk, very low reward move. So if Blizzard were to copy Final Fantasy XIV, what would end up happening? They'd end up losing a lot of their own player base because a lot of people play WoW for completely different reasons, right? And one of the reasons a lot of people play WoW is because they don't want to play Final Fantasy XIV. So they would quit right off the bat, because for those of you that don't know, Final Fantasy locks you into a very long quest chain from which you cannot get out. If you don't finish the quest line, you can't do anything else. The quest line is everything, and they really take their time. There are moments in Final Fantasy XIV where the cutscenes itself is like half an hour long. And that's literally all you're doing. For half an hour, you're sitting there watching a cutscene. And it's not even that all the cutscenes are voiced. Some of those cutscenes are literally just you reading what characters are saying to one another. Now, for Final Fantasy, that works, right? And for a lot of players, that is exactly what they live for. It would kill WoW. But the problem for World of Warcraft has always been this gameplay first idea. So what ends up happening with a lot of the quest lines is either the story gets cut short because, gameplay first, or the story is kind of treated as an afterthought, right? So it's just a way to get you from point A to point B. the Blue Dragonflight questline really was, in many ways, a very unique questline in World of Warcraft's history, insofar as it was the first time ever where it was gameplay lost, right? Gameplay wasn't important in most of that questline. Sure, you had a bunch of traveling, right, that you would have to go back and forth, but very little, like, actual gameplay, and what gameplay there was actually very good. I thought the ball, I don't know if you guys remember that arcane ball that you had to sort of gather up all of the mobs. That was a really cool quest chain, or like a really cool bit of gameplay, really unique, really fun. So I thought the Blue Dragon questline was just absolutely phenomenal. It had everything in it. It was a very slow build to an incredibly dramatic end, and sort of like an emotional end. So I do think that, you know, kudos to Blizzard. I really hope that we can see more of this in the future. Don't make this part of the main storyline. I think Blizzard did this perfectly. It's a side quest. You don't have to do it. No one's forcing you to do it. It is sort of on the side. It's part of the Blue Dragon quest line. And for those that really don't give a shit, they can just sort of rush through it. It's not part of the main storyline in order to get you into the raid. So I do think, you know, more of this in the future could absolutely just be amazing. So I wanted to start off with that. Next topic of conversation, I can see from chat that you guys enjoyed the storyline as well. So I'm happy to hear that. We'll talk a little bit towards the end about, you know, your thoughts, chat, on how exactly you would have wanted to make it better, or what your exact thoughts are on the storyline. I want to talk very quickly, and this is going to be super brief, the WoW token drama. Have you guys heard about the WoW token drama, chat? Blizzard just announced that there will be a new WoW token introduced into Wrath Classic. Now, as you can imagine, right, all of the gamers were very measured and tempered with their feedback. You know, people were very helpful, and of course, that wasn't what happened. People were very angry over the WoW token. Now, the reason I didn't make a video on it is because I didn't care, but I had a lot of people ask me about my WoW token feelings and thoughts about it, so this is why I'll briefly cover it in the Shill show, because the Shill show really is like a collection of whatever happened throughout the week that I sort of want to give my thoughts on if I'm not going to make videos on it. I think, for me, I no longer care. I think my days of fighting the inevitable are over. Purely because I think the group of us that sort of want to keep World of Warcraft pure and want to keep it a game made for gamers by gamers, I think that group is diminishing, and it's diminishing fast, right? You see more and more players now almost being jubilant when new mounts are added to the cash shop, right? Because it means they don't have to farm for it. They can just buy it and it's there. You see more and more people sort of embracing the WoW token, and you actually now have people that will quit the game if the WoW token was ever to be removed. So from my perspective, if it is what the majority wants, then what the hell is the point of me fighting against it, right? I'm just fighting against what the majority wants, and Blizzard wouldn't be doing it if the majority of people didn't enjoy it. So at the end of the day, all I'm doing is I'm starting fights that I'm never going to win, because there will never be a way for me to explain to anyone why things like this is bad and why I wish that these things wouldn't be implemented into the game. I do think this is going to do a lot of harm to Wrath. I do think the Wrath economy is going to suffer greatly as a result of this introduction. But it's also my understanding that WoW or Wrath Classic isn't the biggest of all of the classic realms, so perhaps this is sort of where Blizzard thought, you know, why not, right? There are a couple of people that's playing it, but it's nowhere near as many people that it would even matter. So yeah, at the end of the day, that's my thoughts. I hate that it's there, but I understand that some people really care about it and really want something like the WoW token. And since the WoW token isn't live, it makes sense that it would go to Classic. I think if Blizzard really wants to start a riot, they add this to WoW Classic, like the proper Classic, the vanilla version of the game. I think that's where Blizzard will run into some serious trouble. Otherwise, I think it's fine. So that's my thoughts. I'm not going to go any deeper into that. I can see from chat that there's a number of people that is very upset about the WoW token, or at least moderately upset about the WoW token. I share your thoughts, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? Like, seriously, guys, I'm going to ask you guys this. Has the introduction of the WoW token into World of Warcraft really affected the way that we play the game in any way, shape, or form? Like, sure, it's destroyed the economy of WoW, but it was always going to be destroyed at some point, so it doesn't really affect me. And I think if you're a raider that has a guild, I don't think it's going to affect you either. I think the only people that's really affected by this are sort of like, you know, very hardcore raiders, because they make a lot of money with the WoW token and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's not really affected me personally that badly, so no point in keeping that fight alive. And that's the end of it. Some good news that we have to talk about. Remember, like, long ago, we spoke about a potential world revamp, right? And this is something that I think a lot of players really care deeply about. The old world of World of Warcraft feels incredibly disjointed. If you look at World of Warcraft as a single game, it doesn't make sense, right? If you try to look at World of Warcraft, so remove all of the expansion names and just look at World of Warcraft, you can't really call World of Warcraft a game, because it really isn't a game. It's a collection of games. It's a library of games, but it's not a game. Playing through, you know, the vanilla version of WoW that you can't do anymore really on retail, but you can do with the Chromie time thing, it has no impact on anything that you can do in Shadowlands, or anything that you're going to do in even Cataclysm, right? The only time vanilla WoW, so the vanilla world, would have any impact is in TBC and in Wrath of the Lich King, and even there its impact is severely diminished, just as a result of how Blizzard have always made games, or made the expansions for World of Warcraft. So the old world in World of Warcraft really is dead weight. It's just sort of something that World of Warcraft carries along with it, and most of us love the old world because of nostalgia, because we played through it. But from a purposeful, what does this mean perspective, technically speaking, if you removed mounts and pets and transmogs, right, from the old world in World of Warcraft, so if you took all of those items and you sort of scattered them into, you know, Shadowlands, you could potentially delete everything else in World of Warcraft. Like, all of the previous content could be deleted, and it would have zero effect on Dragonflight. It would legitimately just not affect Dragonflight in any way, shape, or form, because Dragonflight doesn't deal with most of the content there. Dragonflight is sort of basically replacing a lot of that content there, with a lot of the lore now sort of being reworked and revamped and sort of rewritten in a way. So at the end of the day, the old world really is just an unnecessary burden. But there is some information that suggests that an old world revamp may in fact be on the cards. Now, to be fair and to be very clear, the evidence of this is incredibly sparse. So specifically, we've seen bits and pieces of new things popping up in the PTRs, things that's referencing things in the old world that isn't currently in the game, right? So you'll see sort of weird houses or establishments popping up in the old world on the PTR but in the PTR data files. But if you go to that area, there's nothing there. Whatever the data files are, they're not actually there. So it does appear like something is going on. We saw this already with the last data mines for patch 10.1, and now in 10.1.5 we're seeing more and more of these sort of old world-esque stuff coming forth. We have, for example, Return to Scholomons that now seems to feature 2 new bosses that was removed from the old version of Scholomons when it was revamped, and it seems like those 2 are actually coming back in to Scholomons. And actually one of the old characters are also making a return as part of the storyline in the old school Scholomons, but now of course the reworked Scholomons. So why is Blizzard doing that? What exactly lies within Scholomons that Blizzard wants to update? Could it be secrets to the next expansion? It is possible. There is some interesting things that happen in Scholomons. Remember, Scholomons overtaken by Calthazard and the necromancers of the time. There's some tie-ins to the light on Azeroth, since, well, whenever there's been Scourge, there's been light as a sort of pushback against the Scourge. All of this leads to a fairly interesting question. Then there's another piece of evidence that I should point out. I'm not going to show you guys because the person on Twitter has me blocked. But someone sent me a screenshot of this. In the data files on the PTR right now, there's a new updated map for Azeroth. The new updated map, everything is exactly the same, except for Kalimdor, that's been moved closer to the rest of the world. So where you had Eastern Kingdoms, you had Northrend, and then you had what the fuck is it called? The Zandalari area, and you had the Kulturan area, and then you had Pandaria, right? You had this thing in the middle, and then you had like Kalimdor way off to the fucking side. You had Kalimdor, and you had the 3 islands, you know, the Blood Azure Mist and that and those islands there. You had those right off to the side. They've been brought in. So they're much closer to the rest. There's now like a giant area next to Kalimdor that's completely open for something on this new map. God knows what it's open for, but it is open. Is that indicative of an old world revamp? Is Blizzard revamping everything in the old world? Or is that indicative of the next zone that we might be traveling towards? The reason I say this is we already know that in Tane 2 there will be a new zone, right? Tane 1.5 will already deal with the intro to the new zone. Tane 2 will deal with the new zone. Where is this new zone going to be? In my opinion, there's exactly 2 areas that the new zone can be. One is inside the Emerald Dream. That's if Blizzard wants to sort of 180 this expansion and take us into the Emerald Dream to start dealing with the Emerald Nightmare, if that is something that Blizzard wants to do. The other option is Accolonn, right? Because it's the only other landmass that we know of that should exist somewhere on our maps, even though we've never seen it and we've never come across it. So there should be some kind of Accolonn, and it would make sense that Accolonn would be as far away from the Dragon Isles as is humanly possible. Because remember where we found Tyr's book, his journal, as well as Odin's edicts. We found those on the Dragon Isles, suggesting that this is where the Keepers were when they were sort of hunting down the heretics that escaped to Accolonn. Now, if you're trying to run away from someone, you want to run as far away from them as is humanly possible. And, you know, past Kalimdor kind of makes sense. That would be quite far away. So those are the 2 areas that we can potentially look at and say, well, actually, maybe that is where we're going with this expansion. So Accolonn is next. The Old World revamp. Let's quickly talk about that. So for anyone that's hoping that there will be an expansion where the entirety of the old world will be completely revamped, I want to say you should go see someone, preferably a professional, because you need to come back in touch with reality a bit. There is no way that there is even enough developers at Blizzard Entertainment, even if they removed all of their developers from all of their games and move them to the WoW team, that they would be able to revamp the old world as well as then add new content for a new expansion. So you would have to make a decision. You would either revamp the old world but no new expansion, or new expansion, you don't revamp the old world. But that's not necessarily the only two options. There is a third option. And this is something that Blizzard actually started doing already back in BFA, which is something that I was actually looking forward to. But then when Blizzard sort of gave up on it in Shadowlands, I thought, fuck, this was actually such a good move. If you guys think back to the, what was it called? The fake PvP Horde v Alliance battle that sort of revamped all of the zone, like some of the zones, the war. Oh my god, what was it called? I'm completely blanking now on it. Warfronts. That's the word. The Warfronts. The Warfronts was the perfect way of revamping the old world without making it seem obvious. You could take 2 zones per patch, revamp them, turn them into a warfront, and the last 2 warfronts now just become the zone. Right? So the war sort of moves from front to front, and, you know, those zones just remain unchanged. This is their new zone, and it's now been updated. And then, of course, you can get the story guys in there to start creating new stories to fit this new updated zone and to build it out. Do I think that that's possible? Because that's the third option. That's the third thing that Blizzard could do for a world revamp. The answer... Actually, let me ask chat first. Do you think Blizzard will at some point have to revamp the old world? Do you think that's something that Blizzard will do? Do you think it has to happen at some point? This contract's a lot of work from independent studios. Yeah, but even an independent studio wouldn't make that work. Some say no, Andy says yes. I do not actually think that they will do that. Chat. I don't think that they will. And I'll explain to you why. They don't have to. Not anymore. With the release of Dragonflight and with what Dragonflight represents, it's the new WoW. From now moving forward, there is literally nothing stopping Blizzard from getting new players to start in Dragonflight, play through Dragonflight, and then jump into the expansion after Dragonflight. And if Blizzard is careful and they ensure that Dragonflight is a proper playthrough from start to finish. So next expansion comes, if you want to start over, you have to start in Dragonflight. You have to level through the whole of Dragonflight as well as all of its patch content, and only then can you move on to the next expansion. You're done, right? That is it. That is the full cohesive story of World of Warcraft that is currently missing from World of Warcraft. That's the new player experience taken care of. That's basically the longevity of the game taken care of, because the story is told, everyone is on the same page of what happens and how it happens. If you think about a lot of the quests in Dragonflight, they deal quite a lot with catching up new players on how World of Warcraft operates and works. You know, a new player comes into Dragonflight and they immediately know about the Titans, they know about the dragons, they know about the Void, they know about the Light to some extent, although the Light might still make their return at some point. They know about the old gods, right? So there's immediately, they know about Nalfarian, there's immediately like, and even in the Blue Dragon quest line, they learned about Arthas, they learned about the Lich King and what the Lich King had done. So really, they've taken care of the history. A new player playing through Dragonflight will have at least a semblance of World of Warcraft from an holistic standpoint. It wouldn't be everything, and to get everything, you would still have to deep dive into the books and stuff, but you would at least have a decent understanding of this is WoW, this is how WoW works, so you can actually play through that storyline. There are still things missing, Gorm. I'm well aware that the Legion is still very much missing, but remember, not everything has to be told in the first expansion. Right? So Dragonflight, its next expansion, may actually start dealing with the Burning Legion, so that new players do learn about what the Burning Legion is, how the Burning Legion works, things of that nature. Remember, you're a new player. You don't have to get all of the information about World of Warcraft in the first expansion. You can get it over the course of multiple expansions. I just feel, at this point, there's one thing that Blizzard desperately needs, and that is a new player experience. I have spent quite a bit of time now talking to new players, specifically people that have never played World of Warcraft, and there's one thing that all of those new players have in common. They have no idea what happens in World of Warcraft. None. They just don't understand WoW, right? You have the Exiles Reach, and they enjoy that for what it is. But then you're dropped right after that in an expansion that explains nothing about the actual world that you're playing in. It only tells its own little story. You don't even finish that expansion before you're finally ready to move on to the max level content. Right? So even in the expansion that you decide to start playing in, you don't finish that expansion. So you don't even know if you decided to, or if you're dropped as a new player into Battle for Azeroth, you don't even finish Battle for Azeroth. So you don't even know what the hell happened there. Battle for Azeroth was a horrible place to start. You know, a lot of the new players were like, yeah, I don't know anything. I don't know who Jaina was. I didn't know who Sylvanas was. I didn't know who Nathanos was. I didn't know who the fuck these trolls were. There were just like a bunch of people there. And there was no explanation of who these people are. If you're a brand new player and you have to get into a game, that's certainly not the way to do it, right? So Blizzard desperately needs a new player experience. Something that allows a new player to get into the game, start learning about the game, learn all of the ins and outs of the game, and Dragonflight does a pretty good job of that, right? When you learn about some of the dragons, you learn about what those dragons are, as well as just learning about them, right? The quest that sends you to Alexstrasza tells you exactly who Alexstrasza is. When you first meet Alexstrasza, she doesn't treat you as if she knows you, she treats you as a stranger, almost, right? You're a new face, almost. For a new player, this is good. It really allows for the new player to immerse themselves and to get to know these people. So I ultimately think that Blizzard did a very good job, and I also think the way that Renown works, Blizzard will be able to gauge or game Renown in such a way that a player just playing through the normal story next expansion will be able to unlock all of the Renown before they even hit max level, or before they even reach the end of the expansion, so they will immediately have access to all of the post MSQ, if I can borrow from Final Fantasy, quest lines, so that they can now go into post MSQ and actually do the patch content. And once they're finished with the patch content, they can move into the next expansion, and the story is there for them, and it takes care of everything. The reason you can't do an old world revamp is it's just too much work. There are so many zones in the old world, and you can't remove the zones in the old world because there's people that actually like those zones. There's people that actually RP in those zones. There's people that get gear from those zones. So you can't just remove those zones. You can also not include all of those zones in your main storyline because at the end of the day, there's just too many of those zones. So the question becomes, well, what do you do? How do you make this world make sense? The truth is you can't. So the only thing you can do is you can give some significance to the old world. So the old world is still there. All of the quests is still there for players that want to do want to play through it. And maybe you create things like, for example, the flying that's coming to the old world. Who fucking saw that? Right? Blizzard told us that dragon riding is completely an expansion feature. Remember, Blizzard said that this is an expansion feature. They haven't decided yet whether or not this is going to come to all mounts or even if it's going to persist past Dragonflight. We're not even done with Dragonflight yet, and Blizzard is already working on making dragon riding work in all of the old world, or at least in some of the old world. So clearly Blizzard wants to update the old world to the extent where people actually do want to go play there. We have the Kalimdor races that's going to take place. We're probably going to have stuff in Eastern Kingdoms. And I do think that's a good move. I think utilizing the old world for fun content. So not things that you have to go through, but things that you might want to go through. I think that's cool, right? And I do think for a new player wanting to play through that, it could make a lot of sense and it could be really fun. But at the end of the day, revamping the old world in its entirety so that it makes sense for modern WoW, I think that's a step too far. There's just too much content. Blizzard started way too big in the first place. Like, OG Blizzard took way too much time and they spent too much time making just a too big a world. So I don't see it. And then you also have to start including TBC. You have to start including Wrath of the Lich King. You have to figure out what the fuck you're gonna do with the Kata zones, right? And how Kata changed the old world. It's just too much of a mess. I don't think that will ever happen. And personally, I think it's fine. So those are my thoughts on the world revamp. There's definitely information out there that seems to suggest that it may actually happen, but we'll see. Mostly, I don't think we're getting a world revamp, but, you know, let me know. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm wrong? Or do you think, no, you've got it, bro. That's probably what's going to end up happening. Then I quickly wanted to touch on a new Evoker questline in 10.1.5. From what we understand, this is the questline that the Evokers will have to do in order to unlock their third spec. The infamous, at this point, support spec that no one seems to be able to figure out whether or not they agree with it, or if they think it should completely be banned and it shouldn't be a support spec. And it's always funny to me, I just want to point this out, it's funny to me how doom and gloom WoW players are. Right? I don't know why I find that funny, but I do find that funny. Like, as soon as I made my video on the fact that there might be support classes, the first thing people started doing was, oh my god, this is gonna kill dungeons, this is gonna kill raids, they better not be so OP that you have to take them because that will kill DPS classes. And it's sort of like, it's not even out yet. Right? You don't even know yet what it's going to look like. Like, according to Blizzard, this is a DPS support spec. So it is a DPS first, meaning it will have a lot of DPS. The only difference between it and literally any other DPS is that a lot of its DPS comes from empowering other DPS to do DPS. Right? So by playing their class perfectly, other people do more damage, and that damage belongs to them. So technically speaking, they are DPSing. So I don't see how that necessarily will kill DPS specs, because you'll still need DPS specs along with your support. I can see how people might be a little bit afraid of what this might do to dungeon balance. Personally, yeah, I don't know. There's a world in which Blizzard can add a 6th spot for dungeons just to sort of counteract this. So even if you do need a support class, there's now 6 spots in a dungeon, so the 6th spot can either be another DPS or it can be a support. But that will all depend on literal balance, right? How balanced is this class when it launches? If it's way too broken, then yes, it will almost definitely mean 2 DPS and 1 support. I think the worst part of this is that there is only 1 support in the game right now. So it doesn't even necessarily offer a lot of flavor. If you don't care for Evoker, but you do care about support, there's not really much that you can do, right? You either play Evoker support or you don't play support right now. So I'm wondering what Blizzard is going to do with the support structure, because they're going through a lot of work for support, right? And I'm wondering, like, to what extent will they buy into this support structure and support classes in general in World of Warcraft? But anyways, we have this story that I wanted to lay out for you guys. This is for the Evoker questline, and it is actually pretty interesting, and there's a couple of really cool things that come out of this. I am glad to see you, Evoker. You look better, more whole. I never noticed before what the lack of that black Dragonflight essence was doing to your people. When the Drakthir were in stasis, your essence was being sapped and collected in this horrifying prison for Adamantia. Destroying the outer wards released the essence, but the prison still holds. For now. I have decided I intend to free this dragon and give her a chance. She might have fallen to corruption or driven mad, but she deserves a chance. So this is Abyssian, obviously now the new aspect, and he's decided to set Adamantia free. Adamantia, by the way, the dragon we discovered all the way back in 1005. I believe it was 1007, not 5, 1007. I was still very excited because this is a black dragon that was alive during the madness or the descent of madness by Nalfarian. She saw this firsthand and she was eventually locked up. And a quick refresher here for anyone that don't remember the story. Adamantia was taking care of the Drakthir. She was tasked by Nalfarian to figure out how to, one, extract the Black Dragon aspect essence, or the Black Dragon essence from the Drakthir, but also something else, which we were never made aware of. No one ever mentioned what that is. But at the creation of the Drakthir, Nalfarian did something to the Drakthir. Like I wanted to say he impregnated the Drakthir with something, but he put some kind of essence inside the Drakthir. This essence is what scared him so much that once he lost the hand of Dominion, he decided to place the Drakthir in stasis. If he could not mind control them, they were too dangerous to walk around. Infused, that's the word. Yes, they were infused with something. And once he lost the ability to mind control them, he immediately said, fuck that, they're going in stasis. Whatever it is that he implanted in him, even Nalfarian was afraid of that essence. It scared the living shit out of him. Adamantia then started to send Nalfarian progress reports, where she would say, hold on, I don't think it's necessary for us to put them in stasis. I don't think it's necessary for us to extract this essence, because if you just speak to them, they will follow you. If you speak to them, they will absolutely follow you. You don't have to worry about it. And Nalfarian got very angry at her, so much so that he threatened to lock her in stasis for all eternity. And the only thing I can imagine is that eventually she turned against Nalfarian and she tried to save the Drakthir. And then Nalfarian decided, fuck you, and he placed her in stasis. Of course, we now learn that the Black Dragon essence that was within the Drakthir, instead of extracting all of it, he used that essence to imprison Adamanthia for whatever purpose we don't yet know. But okay, so your Scout Commander Emberthal says, I feel more like myself. I can access power I had forgotten. That is good. Now, on to this poor dragon. Take care, Abyssian. From what I recall, Adamanthia was good to us, but she was not always kind. She knew how to train the Wurns for war. No, no, I will not go back to that prison. I will not be forgotten. Never again, Adamanthia screams. Emberthal, please, Adamanthia. We mean you no harm. You are not in danger. Usurpers! What have you done with my Drakthir? What have you done to my Drakthir? It is me. It's Emberthal. Do you remember? Emberthal? Emberthal, is that you, child? You are awake, and I sense Evoker. Your minds. We are free of his influence. We are now our own people. Free? How? Oh no. I nearly killed you and champion. You taught us how to survive draconic attacks. Now rest. There will be time to talk. You have missed a lot, and we have much to discuss. So Adamanthia is free, and she does not appear to be mad. Whatever the corruption of Neltharion, it did not reach her, but we're not done yet. We keep going. She is free, and I sense none of Deathwing's corruption in her. For better or for worse, the prison shielded her from the madness that consumed Neltharion and his flight. Now she will need time to heal, whether she chooses to become an ally, a foe, or free of the Dragonflights. The decision is hers. Thank you for your help today, champion. You have shown what the essence of the Black Dragonflight was meant to be. We empower and mentor, not dominate and enslave. And I thought this was interesting. And we went through all of this so that we could get to this little bit, this tiny breadcrumb of speculation goodness. The prison, according to Abyssian, shielded her from the madness that consumed Neltharion and his flight. Now, I have so many problems with Neltharion, and this expansion just made those problems worse. My problems with Neltharion started all the way back in Legion already. We learn that Neltharion takes a bunch of Black Dragon eggs through the Dark Portal to the Outland. We never learn why and for what purpose. It's inferred to us that the why is so that they can dominate and eventually conquer the Outlands. That's the inference that's made. But insofar as it's ever explained, it isn't. We don't know. Now we learn that Neltharion built a prison for Adamanthia, but the prison itself shielded her from the very corruption of the old gods that he at this point would have already served. Remember, Neltharion fell long before he imprisoned Adamanthia. We already know this. We've been to Aberys. We've seen what he's done in Aberys. And I can't help but speculate that there was a small part of Neltharion that wanted to ensure the continuance of his flight even after his demise, after his fall to madness. This is why he kept Adamanthia locked within a prison to guard over the Drakthir, so that when the time comes, the Dracthyr would once again be given life, and they would have Adamantia from his flight to guide them. And this is why he took Sibelian and the Black Dragons through the Dark Portal to the Outlands to remove them from the potential corruption that was, at this point, just running rampant through his flight. In my mind, this makes sense. So there's this... There was this small part of Nalfarian, perhaps a tiny bit of his humanity left, or his original aspecthood left, that understood his fall to madness was gonna be his end. It was also going to be the end of the Black Dragons. Now remember, Rathian was a complete mistake. The Red Dragons were the ones who found a bunch of eggs from Nalfarian, and they tried to cleanse them, and Rathian is the one that survived that cleansing process. But Rathian was a mistake. Nalfarian most likely banked on the fact that once he is killed, his brothers and sisters will go around and they will destroy all of his eggs, because all of his eggs were completely infused with the corruption of the old gods at this point. So he took some eggs to the Outland to safeguard those eggs, to ensure that his brothers and sisters would never get those eggs and destroy them, so there would still be a Black Flight. His legacy, so to speak, would still to some extent be maintained. And he left Adamantia there, shielded from the corruption, so that the Dracthyr, his other legacy, would also survive this. That's sort of my read on those two pieces of lore. Now, of course, it could also just be a strategy, right? So from a strategic standpoint, if ever he needed reinforcements, he could go find it in the Outland. If ever he needed reinforcements, he could go find it in the with the Dracthyr, right? So it was quite literally just meant to be reinforcement, and perhaps them being in stasis, he would have been able to pump them full of old god juice, and they would all become Sarkareth effectively. We don't know. This brings us, though, to... Let's call it a hard discussion, because it is sort of diving into a little bit of a negative discussion, but with a caveat. It's not quite negative. A lot of people are negative about it, but it's only because I think a lot of people don't quite follow the logic of... like, the potential logic. Let's call it that. What was your... and this goes to everyone in chat, what was your genuine experience or feeling of 10.1? Like, if you were to genuinely put it into words, how did you feel about 10.1? Good goal, yeah, but he would probably always have been able to go to Outland with relative ease. I mean, the portal was up, and so he probably would have been able to. Good overall. Honestly, meh. Haven't played yet. So I'll be honest. 10.1 lacked an oh shit moment. Looking at 10.1, there was no oh shit moment in 10.1. There were a bunch of really cool and cutesy sort of moments, and all over it was very decent, but there was no, you know, like, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? In the past, go Legion, right? Every patch in Legion had like an oh shit moment. It was like a oh shit, right? Every patch had that moment that made you think, oh crap, what the fuck's gonna happen? This one sort of just, it really felt like sort of just a narrative continuance of the launch of Dragonflight leading towards something, but the something never came. Balila had a bunch of tweets on this, right? Where Balila spoke about how 10.1 doesn't answer anything. It just leaves more questions. It brings no real massive conclusions to a lot of the stories. And so 10.1, from his read, just felt a little bit empty. And to some extent, I can agree with Balila. I don't think Balila is wrong on that. But here's the caveat. As players in World of Warcraft, we have gotten so very used to very quick sort of introductions, build-ups, and then releases, right? If we were having sex as World of Warcraft players, it would be 5 minutes and we're done, right? And we would go, oh shit, that was magic. That was so good. And anything longer than 5 minutes would feel like we were working too hard. Because that's really how World of Warcraft has always been. There's a new patch. You play through the new patch. It takes maybe 2 hours, 3 hours to go through the whole patch, if you exclude all of the time gating that comes with it, right? And then you have your orgasm right at the end. There's like this massive orgasm mode or moment right at the end. And then you wait for the next patch. And that's fine. The problem has always been that for us story nerds, it's always felt a little rushed. It's usually like, oh shit, I was hoping for more of a build-up. The release feels a little underwhelming, or to some extent even, what word would I use here? The release feels forced, right? It doesn't feel like I've been led to this giant, oh shit, I'm coming moment. It feels like I was forced to do this, right? I was forced to ejaculate at this moment, and there's still a lot of questions around why did I even do this? You know, and that's sort of always been World of Warcraft's thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. We freaked out over the cinematics together. We were all super excited with the cinematics in BFA, the cinematics in Legion, and we loved those very large moments, but we always had complaints, you know. Dragonflight really feels like a massive shift in philosophy from Blizzard Entertainment, where the expansion is treated as a chapter within a book, and the patches are treated as pages within that chapter. And not every page of a book is going to end with a massive, big, come on your face money shot, right? Not every page. If anyone has ever read a book, they will know it doesn't always end with the money shot at the end of every page. Sometimes you have to go through many, many pages before you get that, you know, coveted money shot towards the end of it. And this is really what Dragonflight feels like. It feels like it's building up. It's slowly moving towards that giant money shot that is going to come, but it's not yet happened. And I can see why for a lot of people it's confusing. I can see why for a lot of people it just doesn't... They want to orgasm, right? They want that big release, and it's not happening. And now they get 10.1, and they were hoping for that big release, and it just didn't happen. But imagine if at the end of this expansion we get a giant release, right? And it's that massive oh shit moment that's been building throughout the expansion, and it's been building slowly throughout the expansion, and suddenly it's all over you, right? Would you not then look back at Dragonflight and think that this may actually be the best that you've ever seen in your entire life? Like, this might actually be the best story you've ever seen in your life. To my mind, I think that's exactly what will end up happening. I think that's exactly how we'd feel. Now, I said that there's a caveat on this, because this is also very dangerous. This is very dangerous from Blizzard. You see, with the previous one, it was a lot easier because you had giant oh shit moments. So if one of your oh shit moments didn't quite oh shit hard enough, it was alright, you know? Who gives a shit? Next time will be better. You're now kind of putting all of your eggs into this singular basket. Like, the payoff is going towards the end of the expansion. If you fuck that up, if you ruin that moment, it's GG, well played, thanks for coming. Like, you're gonna get a lot of people very angry for sticking around throughout this entire storyline and not getting the release that was promised at the end of this. So it's bold, and I actually like it. I like it. I want Blizzard to be more bold. I want Blizzard to take bigger chances. It's actually one of the things that I wish I could sit down and speak to Ian, and specifically speak to the world designers, the quest designers and the world designers. Tell me if you guys agree with this. WoW's quest design feels incredibly dated. And I don't mean just a little. I mean, it really has not held up with the times. The quest that we have today is still the exact same quests that we've had since vanilla. Nothing has changed. It's literally the same thing. The world quests, while there's a lot more of them, and there's a lot more world bosses, it's the same thing. It's just a different zone. Yes, there's more zones now, and the zones come out quicker, but in essence, the setting changes, but the work is exactly the same. You're still going around and you're killing a world boss that doesn't really provide you with much of a challenge, but it sort of has to be killed because it drops loot. The world quests are basically exactly the same, with the only real exception for world quests that feel new this time around would be the ones on your mount. So the mount ones are pretty cool. You know, fly through a bunch of things. There can be some of them that's actually pretty tricky. And I actually do like the world quest where you have to just fly through the rings, right, in order to complete the world quest. I think those are actually pretty cool. The climbing ones are okay-ish, right? They're not great, but let's put it this way. It's not what I imagined when Blizzard said jumping puzzles. You know, Blizzard sort of announced that there was going to be jumping puzzles, and that's not quite what I had in mind when they said jumping puzzles. But it's also not, you know, it's a good change of pace from the general kill 20 of this, kill 40 of this, collect 10 of this, sort of bog standard thing. And I think Blizzard needs to start thinking out of the box here. I'm not going to sit here and try to mouth off on a bunch of different ways in which Blizzard can do it, but I do think it's time that Blizzard think out of the box. I think it's dangerous as things stand, because it just feels dated. It feels like these quests would be right at home 20 years ago. 20 years ago, people would be thinking, oh my god, this is the same as all of the other quests we have. And I don't know. I don't think that's good. I do think Blizzard needs to work. And also unofficial world quests, you know, things that you can do unofficially within the world might also be a good idea from Blizzard's perspective to try and go for. Stuff like jumping puzzles, you know, building towers within the world that is a jumping puzzle. It's not something that you ever have to do, but you can do it because the puzzle is there if you want to do it. Things like that could really make the world come alive. But anyways, don't want to waste too much time on this. I just thought it was interesting, and I really want Blizzard to maybe take more chances in that regard. Like, go more ham, go bigger. I do think you've nailed everything so far, Blizzard. The world is absolutely phenomenal. It's so beautiful. The music is so good. Although I will say, I don't remember the music. It feels like WoW music have lost a little something. And I don't know exactly why. Maybe I'm just wrong. But, you know, I remember the songs we're listening to right now. These are from old school WoW, right? I remember each of these songs. If you played this song for me, I know where it happened. I know what I was doing at the time that it was happening. The new music is kind of, I don't know. It just feels underwhelming. I don't remember it, but never mind. The world is absolutely amazing. The art is amazing. The story is amazing. The flow is amazing. So I do think the quests need to pick up and also become amazing, because I do think that will really explode just people's enjoyment from the game. But anyways, right? On to the thing that I was most excited for to talk to you guys. We have a new interview from Ian and Holly. I say new, it's over a week old at this point, but I haven't seen anyone cover this interview. So I wanted to cover it because there's some really interesting things here. So the first thing that Ian goes over, now I don't know the questions that was asked because it was in Korean. So I basically just got the transcript of what Ian and Holly said, so we can sort of infer from what they said what the questions may have been. But the first thing they said was that the team had undergone like a bunch of changes, and there's been like a huge growth of the team for Dragonflight. So the team that makes Dragonflight has actually grown quite heavily. The intent is to go to the next level, providing more content for all the ways players engage with the game, leading to more varied content for different play styles. Their development philosophy is listening to the community, getting their feedback, and delivering additional patches more often. So I think that's been happening. Looking at what they've done in Dragonflight, look at the pace of the content. You know, 10.1 came out, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago? And we already see 10.15 on the PTR, right? The data mined files are already available there. People are already busy data mining shit there. That PTR is going to go live soon if it's not live already. And, you know, that's going to come soon as well. So content has definitely picked up speed. The go to the next level, sort of hit or miss, I think, at this point still. Anyway, so they were asked about the success of Dragonflight, and I thought this was an interesting answer. The team is tremendously proud of their efforts with Dragonflight and the players' reaction. Success is judged by feedback from players and Blizzard's own data. Are the things they've put time into making being enjoyed? The answer to both in Dragonflight have been very positive. I wonder still what the player numbers look like. Now, I remember seeing some indication of player numbers, and it actually looks really good. Balila just had a video out looking at, as he always does at the start of a new dungeon or a new raid cycle, he looks at the numbers. And I do have to say, Blizzard made a bold choice. How do you guys feel about the easier than usual raid? Have you guys enjoyed the fact that the raid is a lot easier this time around than it's ever been before? Or do you actually prefer the more super hard struggle for months to get through the raid? Because the numbers appear to suggest that people are a lot more happy with the easier raid. The fact that they don't have to like spend months of their life trying to get through the raid. I wonder what that's going to do for overall replayability of the game, because for a lot of people, they play the game because they raid. That's one of the reasons, I think, why Blizzard have always sort of made raiding harder than what it necessarily has to be, right? Most likely because they know a lot of people keep playing because they raid and they log in 3 days a week, so they have to keep paying their subscription. Now that a lot of people will probably be finished within the next month with the raid on whichever difficulty they choose to do, I wonder what that's going to do to player numbers. There is a chance that Blizzard have sort of realized, you know what, people aren't really unsubbing. The fact that they have this, you know, easier than usual way of playing the game doesn't seem to lead to a lot of people leaving the game or unsubbing or whatever the case might be. So, you know, I would love to see what those numbers are going to be. They were then asked about changing to more frequent patch cycles, and Ian had the following to say: 6 to 10 week patch cadence with always something to do, highly experimental. Keep the world alive at all times. The 6-month patch cadence really put a lot of stress on the devs, since everything needed to be done by patch time. The new system allows for more freedom. I said this back in Shadowlands already. I said this is what Blizzard needs to do. So I don't know if Blizzard actually listened to me or if this is just coincidence. But back in Shadowlands already, I made a video explaining how if you're trying to go for like a massive patch every 6 months, you're constrained by whatever the fuck you can fit into that patch. And if it isn't ready, you have a massive choice to make. Either you lose a bunch of content that should have gone live this time so that you can release it in the next 6 months, which then probably means that this patch doesn't offer enough content for the people to wait for 6 months, or you postpone the launch of the patch until whatever the fuck you were working on is actually ready. Whereas now, with Blizzard sort of going, you know what, we'll release the patches whenever the fuck they're ready, easy does it, right? If you have a massive storyline that you're working on, a side storyline that you really want to release, but it's just not ready yet for this patch, well, just do it next patch. And you don't have to worry about it. So I think we've all experienced the game to be a much more alive and a lot more fun as a result of that. The fact that there's so much more content coming out, and as a casual player, there's actually so much to do in the world right now that it actually feels really cool. And I just wonder if this can actually continue into like the next expansion and the expansion after that. That's probably going to be the big question. Like, how many expansions can they keep this up for? Because they did this in Legion. For those of you that don't remember, in Legion they had this once every 3 months there would be a new patch, right? 3 or 4 months there would be a brand new patch, and it would be perfect. But remember, Legion had a lot of like downtime because Warlords of Draenor was kind of given up on halfway through the expansion. So when Legion came out, they were already working for a long time on Legion. And then BFA came out, and BFA could not keep up with the patch cadence nor with the amount of content that Legion had because they didn't have enough time. So I am a little afraid of that, that they might be shooting themselves in the foot with the next expansion. But if they are sort of into this new more freedom, there's a good chance that Blizzard no longer care about when the next expansion comes out. So if they have to push the next expansion and just keep releasing new patches until the next expansion is ready, they might do that because it seems like they're going for more freedom rather than just straight up, you know, more content in general. Anyways, the next one he was asking for was quicker patches and addressing user feedback faster. And they said they have pushed for more frequent content, but talking to the community is important. The goal is for there to be trust between the devs and the player. Their hope is for changes to be quick enough that players never feel defeated when they make mistakes. This was actually, the full quest was about specifically PvPers that feel like some of their classes just don't operate and just don't work well, and how Blizzard is going around trying to fix that. Now, you know, for Ian, they hope, and this is not going to happen now, just to be clear, because a lot of people might immediately go, but Accolonn, my class has been broken and people are losing their shit. Yes, but this is sort of what Blizzard is doing here, is they're laying the groundwork for a new culture in World of Warcraft. And if they can stick to it, it will in time adapt and be adopted by the player base, right? For now, people are still operating on the old school mindset where your class is broken, it's probably going to be broken for the whole fucking expansion. Have fun. And that's the old mindset. That's how it used to work. I remember I played in Warlords of Draenor when Ian laughingly said, Demonology is dead and we don't give a fuck. And it was like, what? But Ian just straight up said, don't play Demonology, play something else. So we were like, dude, it was fine until you broke it. Just fix it. Make it fine again. That's all we would care about, right? Just make it like it used to be. It would be fine. But they just literally said, no, it's broken. We don't care. We're revamping it anyway. So who gives a shit, right? And we knew that it was going to be for more than a year. This is how we're going to be playing. Blizzard's new thing is they'll make changes as soon as they can, as soon as they figure out a new way to do it. And I do think in time, players will accept this new philosophy from Blizzard, and hopefully it becomes something that, you know, even if your class is broken, you're not immediately giving up hope and sort of quitting the game, but rather sticking around because you know Blizzard will actually look at it and they will actually fix it. Activity changes, the trading post, account-wide systems, reduction in daily, weekly homework quests. It started with player feedback. Legion created a false image of what players wanted. The focus now is on more optional content. Again, I wonder what their numbers look like. You have to imagine the numbers look good, right? Like, why can't all classes do generally the same damage? Like, why have broken classes tier list? Like, so, Nostalgia, you can't really have that because it would feel unreal, right? It would sort of very much break the immersion. For all classes to do exactly the same damage, you would also have to then sort of homogenize literally all of the classes. Would have to be fully homogenized. All of the classes would have to have the exact same movement abilities. They would have to have the exact same damage numbers. They would have to have the exact same mechanical numbers so that you can sort of equalize everything across the board. It's just not something that really works. The other reason is that hero moment, right? People want to feel like heroes. So you want to give every player at least once in an expansion that one fight where they will be top of the log and no one can beat them. They are the strongest here. That it feeds into that hero fantasy that players have, and yeah, you're never gonna get away from that. That's something that players really do want. But onto the activity changes, the training post, and so on and so forth. They didn't go into a lot of detail, but what was interesting to me about this, about Ian's answer, was the fact that they have not changed this yet. The fact that they haven't gone back to... Because remember, these numbers would be easy to track. These are not numbers that you have to wait months and months and months before you can get it. It's not lagging numbers. Blizzard can see in real time how much are people playing Dragonflight, how much are people playing, and how many people are unsubbing from the game. This is real-time numbers that they can actually see. So if they were seeing more people keep playing during, say, for example, Shadowlands, when you had all of these chore quests, than they do now, we would have already gone back to that. The fact that they're sticking to this new, more freedom-focused World of Warcraft suggests that more people are actually playing and paying for the game. This is the first expansion since Legion that I have not felt like I wanted to unsub from the game, even if I don't play as often. Look, I'll be honest, you know, once I finish the story, I go into a super chill mode where maybe I play once every week, every 2 weeks, sometimes even once a month, that I'll log in and do some stuff, you know, basically whenever the fuck I feel like it. I still don't want to unsub because I know that at some point I'm going to be like, shit, I really want to go into Azeroth. Right? And then I have to resub again. That's a lot of work. So just keep the sub going. You know, I will definitely go back. this is the first time since Legion that that's happened to me. In BFA, there were so many times that I wanted to quit the game. In Shadowlands, I did actually quit the game. Partly because I hated it, and also partly because of the lawsuits. But, you know, all in all, I am excited for what these numbers look like, even though we're probably never going to know. Blizzard was then asked about small group content, Mythic Plus, and solo players. And this may actually be... So on the Mythic Plus side, right, Ian and the team, they seem to be having something cooking for Mythic Plus. They didn't go into detail, but they did say that Mythic Plus is the most successful content that they've ever made. And they are looking at more content like that. I don't know what the fuck that means. But that appears to be what at least what I took away from his answer there. They're looking for more ways to implement Mythic Plus like content. But then he said something that I really think... I don't know how they're going to fix it. Solo players. And they feel like solo players are still heavily let down. Even after everything, even with how Dragonflight is playing out, solo players are still being kicked in the teeth. And I would say the only group of players that might actually be let down even more than solo players in World of Warcraft would be RPers. I genuinely think if you're an RPer in WoW, you probably get shat on the most by Blizzard. I don't think there's a single group within the WoW community that gets less of a reach around than RP players. The RP players are just completely forgotten about. For solo players, the good thing here is that a lot of the things that you would add for solo players would almost inherently be added for RP players, right? Because RP players would probably also partake in the things that you add for solo players. But I do think that Blizzard needs to work a lot harder at, like, solo content. This is where the housing system comes in. I know there's a bunch of people that don't care for housing, and that's fine. I don't give a shit about housing. But housing is a really good way of keeping solo players happy. Especially when you can put a lot of the cosmetics for the house in the world, right? So kill a world boss, there's a chance that curtains drop from it. Kill this boss, and there's a chance that a carpet drops from it, right? It gets people out into the world, it gets them playing the game, but at the same time, they can go build their house, and they can invite their friends over to the house to RP or, you know, just show off their house or whatever the fuck they want to do with their house. It doesn't really matter, but houses are an incredibly useful tool for that. There's a lot of people that sort of suggested solo raiding. I genuinely don't think Blizzard should do solo raiding. I know there's a lot of people that, like myself, hate the fact that a lot of the story is hidden within the raid. But raiding, the whole point of raiding is group, right? That's what a raid is at its core. It's you with a bunch of your fellow soldiers taking on the hardest content in World of Warcraft. The second you make that soloable, so you diminish its impact, right? From a story perspective, if you're doing it solo, what the hell is the point of doing it in a group? So I genuinely reject the idea of doing it solo, even with NPCs, Garm. I reject that. It is a group activity, and it should remain a group activity. There is a place in games like this for group activities, and raiding is that thing. It's like dungeons. Dungeons are for groups. It's smaller groups, but it's still for groups. Do I think that we need to get things like scenarios back? Absolutely. Do I think that we need to get things like these quest lines we did with the Blue Dragonflight and Terragosa's Rest? Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things, though, that Blizzard can build into the world for solo players to enjoy that will offer them story, but also offer them some level of challenge that isn't necessarily forced upon the player base. And then, yeah, I'm going to say it. Torghast. I think Torghast can come back in a different version or variation of Torghast, where, you know, it's the same thing. You get powerful, you get all of these abilities, and you get to run faster, and you get to do more damage, but it's just not forced, right? You're not forced to do it. You're not really gaining anything from it. The only thing that comes from it might be mounts and pets and, you know, things that you can update as time goes on. Maybe you add a couple of floors every patch to really keep it fresh and to give players more and more reason to go run through it. But these are types of content that I think solo players would absolutely enjoy. The only reason Torghast felt awful, Jedi, is because you had to do it. You were forced to do it. And if you're forced to do something, specifically if that something isn't necessarily something that you like doing in the first place, it's going to feel extra bad. Because you have to constantly make time for this one thing. But if you're talking objectively, like if you're talking actually, was Torghast fun? Then yes, it was fucking fun. It wasn't actually that bad. There were a number of bosses in there that, or, you know, mobs in there that really made you think, really made you sort of plan your attack. It was really cool when you got all the right abilities to make yourself into a god. It was super good. It could have been more challenging. I do think that they could have added more things to it to make it a lot more challenging, even if that's optional for players that really do want to challenge themselves, that they can do that. But all in all, I do think something like Torghast helps, especially if it's not forced. So you don't have to do it. It's just another part of the game for players that want to do it. Island Expedition's another one that if Blizzard brings that back, right, and they update it a little just to make it a little bit more challenging, but you keep it completely optional. Island Expedition's a really good way to give solo players something to fucking do in the game, right, that they can do on their own and really just enjoy it. I think you can still do Torghast. I'm not entirely sure. But Blizzard needs to go back and look at their old world. There's so many good things in the old world that they can absolutely bring back. So, yeah. The next one was evolving the trading post, suggesting new categories and features. And Blizzard said that there is massive player participation within the trading post. And then he said something, and this is going to excite... Okay, do we have any transmoggers in the chat? Anyone that loves transmogging in chat? All right, this is for you. Community ideas such as skill glyphs and more pets and mounts will be coming in the trading post at some point. So the ability to glyph skills so that they look different, so that they change color, so that you can do various things with those glyphs. Glyphs might actually be making an appearance within the trading post at some point for anyone that really likes making their class their own, right? This is something that Blizzard is definitely looking at adding. So yeah, for all of the transmoggers out there, Ian and the team is looking at this. I'm assuming a lot of people would actually enjoy this. They were then asked about the class balance with the greater frequency in between patches. Past mistakes left players feeling that their class will never get fixed. The new approach is to make sure players know their class will be fixed ASAP. I don't know how people feel about this. I know a lot of warlocks are unhappy right now with demonology. I believe there's a few classes I think that's currently a bit unhappy. Jack Sanity, it is my understanding that the glyphs that he was talking about there was just called skill glyphs, right? So effectively like the green fire for warlocks that turned all of your fire magic green. Only this time around you can do things sort of on a spell by spell basis. So you can collect the different glyphs and change all of your spells into looking a specific way, the way that you want it to look, for example. And this is from the community feedback. So I would suggest, if you're a player and there's certain things that you really want to see in World of Warcraft, maybe go and suggest that, right? Go around and sort of mention to Blizzard, I'd love to see X, Y, or Z, and Blizzard might actually add that for you. So yeah, it does appear as if they're paying much attention to how things are going, or how the player base is, and I think it shows in Dragonflight so far. So Dragonflight's most successful content, according to Ian and Holly, raids and dungeons have always been very good. I think for the most part, the dungeons have been really fun. There are a couple of dungeons that I really just fucking hate, but for the most part, I thought the dungeons have so far been really good. I haven't done any of the raids so far, so I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the raids, but, you know. I did do Razagath. Never mind. I did do Razagath. It was alright. It wasn't the greatest, but then again, I'm not really into raiding anymore. And then there's something that actually surprised them. Outdoor content has surprised them, and they are working even harder to make it better. The soup event was a massive surprise to them. They did not expect things like the soup event to actually be something that people give a shit about. It surprised them, and they're actually looking at adding even more events like that. Personally, that makes me happy, because I like the soup event, right? I still do it whenever I see it is up. I like the... You see, I see those events, like the new one, the Farak invasion, right? What I like about these events is it's quite easy when you're out and about in Azeroth, you know, to sort of forget that you're playing an MMO. You know, unless you're like raiding or doing dungeons, it's very easy to forget, right? You're just off doing your world quests, running around, collecting stuff, climbing on mountains and stuff like that. So it's very easy to sort of forget that this is an MMO and there's other players playing the game as well. But then, you know, you happen upon a Farak invasion, and suddenly you're reminded, wait, there's a lot of other players around doing things, right? You go to the soup event and suddenly you're reminded this is an MMO. I think these events do a really good job of bringing back that MMO feel. It makes players realize that, hey, there's a reason why I exist here, and there's a reason why this is called MMO. So I do think it's really good from that standpoint. It should be an MMO. It should be played as an MMO. And this is sort of like the perfect balance between forcing players to play group content and allowing players the freedom to play in whichever way they want, right? You're never going to be able to solo Farak. But then again, you don't have to. If you don't want to partake in that group event, just don't do it, right? I would like to see more of those flying things, though, Nostalgia. I'd like to see more of those flying races. Maybe an event or two that go from zone to zone with a new course where everyone is notified, hey, there's a race going down soon. Winner gets however much gold or whatever the fuck might be, right? And then you can just go race people. Might actually be good. An event like that could actually be super fun. And then, of course, MMO Crisis. Does WoW need to change to keep up with modern trends? It's a constant conversation, and they are aware that they need to change with the times to capture a new audience. I would say this is perhaps one of WoW's, like, hardest battles, and it's gonna be one that they're gonna have to think long and hard about this one. Games have changed, right? Games are just no longer what they used to be 20 years ago, and the change to that, the change that would be required for World of Warcraft to really live up to the expectations of the modern player base, WoW is coming in at a massive disadvantage here. Mainly because WoW is so fucking old. You know, WoW is older than most of the MMOs that it's fighting against. It's older than Final Fantasy. It's older than Guild Wars 2. And both of these games have had their own revamps as a result of losing to World of Warcraft. You know, for Final Fantasy, they lost badly to World of Warcraft. So they were forced to do a full revamp, basically fire the whole team and get new people in to actually start competing against World of Warcraft. Guild Wars 2, exact same thing. They were forced to do massive revamps in order to get a player base for themselves. I'm not suggesting World of Warcraft needs an entire revamp, but it's gonna need a lot of small changes very often in order to bring it into the new era of video games. And we'll have to see how Blizzard handles that. I'll, of course, keep you guys up to date as and when those things happen. Then they were asked about the inventory and upgrade system for World of Warcraft. This might actually be very interesting for some of you. They are looking to move the crests and the flight stones into the currency tab, which my bags are fucked. I really don't need those in my bags as well. The system will most likely become a permanent system. Again, I think this is really good. What I love about the flight stones and the crest system is it rewards whatever the hell you're doing. So everything you're doing in the game feels like you are actually helping yourself. It doesn't feel like you're doing something that you really want to do, but you're actually wasting your time doing it because you could be doing other pieces of content that would grant you crests and flight stones. So I really think this is good. And then this system rewards content regardless of type, as I said before. I think really good. And then we'll end with a bit of a teaser for all of you. I'm not ending the stream, by the way. We'll keep streaming for a bit after this. I'm just ending the official Shill show that's going to be uploaded to podcasts, Spotify, Applecast, all that stuff, right? That's ending officially, but we'll hang out after this. But a little bit of a spoiler for those of you that might be interested. The Black Dragons, the story as it continues. Everyone seems to be pretending like Aberrus is over. Oh, fine. We've killed Neltharion. We've killed Sarkareth. Whew. Finally, you know, our brother is fucked and we can forget about him. But why is no one talking about the giant fucking portal to the void literally in Aberrus? It's not even a portal. It's like a literal opening into the void. Like the void is literally just outside. You can literally look through it and go, oh, that's the void. What do you know? Right? And apparently that's not a big deal. Apparently that's just a small thing. Who gives a shit, right? Doesn't matter. Now, I would argue Aberrus is going to have a massive part to play in the future of World of Warcraft. I can't yet say what that part will be, because I genuinely don't know. But I do think there's something huge coming in Aberrus. So 5 lanterns now darkened. The flame they seek will light the Master's way. We have Infinite Corrupted Tyr coming back next patch. We have Tyr's body just basically sitting there waiting. They need him because he's going to be the one to show them how to ignite the Mother Oath Stone so that all the other Oath Stones can actually be brought back. FYI, none of the current aspects are actually officially aspects. They are aspects currently in name only. Their Oath Stones have not been fully activated yet. The Mother Oath Stone have not been activated yet. They are not yet immortal aspects. They are still seeking that flame. We have a portal right underneath the Dragon Isles. We have oath stones littered all over the Dragon Isles. Some might argue, point to point. I wonder where I would be fucked if that portal to the void lies directly under the Mother Oathstone. I would have to check that. I don't even know if you'd be able to see that. But I'm pretty sure if that Mother Oathstone gets activated, that portal truly opens up and the Masters are finally free to come in. That's the spoiler. That's the video that I'm currently working on. So look out for that one. It's probably going to be a long one. The editing is going to take a while on that bitch, but I will try and do it for you. If you're watching this over on Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms, I really appreciate you. Remember to follow, hit like or whatever. I really appreciate that. And for those of you watching on the stream, well, we'll be talking still. Peace out, fam. All right. What did you guys think of the Shill show? What are you guys talking about? What if the elements and the old gods made an alliance against the Titans? That's why Shadow Flame was able to be created. I still like my theory better, but Solomon, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I just prefer my theory. I'm a bit stubborn that way. But I mean, it's entirely possible. Shadow Flame is definitely a weird one, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. On the face of it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I can genuinely, I can think it's possible. In like, there's a lot of ways in which it can go. But yours is definitely possible. Do you remember the Legacies Chapter 3 cinematic? There were 5 Dragonflights to fight the Drakthir. Who is the 5th? We only know 4 Primal Incarnates. Thoughts? Wait, there were? Dude. That just blew my fucking mind. Hold up. That's Legacy Chapter 3, right? Oh, for fuck's sake, can I type? Alright, let's check this out, shall we?
Moments in time. Yet now you ask me to guide you?
There is a blind spot in my vision of a time before Neltharion's corruption, and I believe it centers upon you. I must know why. Seek him out in your memory.
It was my honor to command a battalion.
Here we go. Should be
We
here.
executed Neltharion's will precisely. Our devotion and discipline were unmatched.
The Titan artifact. That must be the source of your unity. This was an ancient magic that bound you to his will. Would you not sacrifice yourselves at his whim?
We were soldiers. There were many threats to the world. And here was the greatest. The Primalists.
Alright, so these could just all be... I mean, it could all just be part of Razageth's Protodrakes, right? Because...
And here was the greatest. The Primalists.
calls them the Primalists, though. They are not the Primalists. They are the Incarnates. All right. They can be minions, but... so here's the thing. All of... like, if Blizzard puts something inside one of these cinematics, there's always a reason for it. There's a reason why they put things into cinematics. I spent literal time with Terran Gregory on Discord. Like, it was me, Apocalypse, Andy, Ferorius. It was me and the mods, right? It was like me and a bunch of the mods. We were hanging out. We were playing games with Terran Gregory, and we asked him this. Actually, he was playing WoW. He was busy playing on his Warrior, and we were playing Valheim at the time. And we were telling him about Valheim, but then we started talking about the cinematics. And he was the one who told us, because he refused to give us information. Like, I can't remember which cinematic it was we were talking about, but I was basically asking him questions, being like, so come on, just be honest with me, right? This is what it means, right? And he was just like, I don't know. You have to check. Like, he's super fucking press release on this kind of shit, right? But he did tell us, if it's in the cinematic, it's there for a reason. Like, they go over those cinematics with a fine-tooth comb to make perfectly sure that the only things that's shown is stuff that they wanted you to see. And that's literally it. So the fact that there's 5 decay, we know of 4 of them. The 1 has already been destroyed. The other 3 have been locked up. We know that there is some kind of relic of ice that's in the Azure span, right? In that tower. Something is locked up there that is producing an immense amount of cold. And then we have, in the Azure span, that entire Brackenhide Hollow that's been completely overtaken by decay magic, specifically Galacron magic. Because if you listen to how Galacron's magic worked, and you look at what's currently happening to the gnolls in that Brackenhide Hollow, it's the same thing that's happening. It's literally the same thing that's happening. What if underneath Brackenhide Hollow, the primal incarnate of decay is locked up? So after Galacron fell, a new champion of decay was chosen. A new incarnate of decay was chosen, and that incarnate is currently locked up underneath Brackenhide Hollow. And his power is seeping out into the land, poisoning it. This could be the 5th. Right? The problem with the Spirit one, we already have an argument for where Spirit is. It's entirely possible that the Spirit one, that one of these is the Spirit one, but we've never seen anything resembling Spirit on Azeroth except for Anima. Anima is the only thing that we've ever seen that sort of flows into the Spirit realm, right? Where Spirit would be. Everything else is represented on Azeroth 100%. Pandaria may have been full of Spirit, but there's no Spirit there now. The only beings we've actually seen in Pandaria that may be corrupted Spirit beasts is the Shah. And if they were Spirit beasts, they haven't been Spirit beasts for a very long time. But as far as the element of Spirit goes, it's just been gone, right? We just do not know where that element is. We know that it's an element. We know it's in the cosmic map. It shows that it's an element, but we've never been able to see it. So here they come closer. They don't look special, do they? This may just be... Like, all of this speculation might just be bullshit. Because there's a good chance that they are all just storm drakes.
That is Razageth, the Storm Eater.
Although they only show Razageth with storm forming on her, none of the others have any storm on them. And if they were all supposed to be storm drakes, surely they would all have had storms forming around them, lightning shooting out of them. Again, I refer back to what I said earlier. If it's in the cinematic, it's there for a reason. Blizzard don't put anything in the cinematics. I'm going to say, yeah, maybe. I genuinely don't know. It would be cool, though. Like, don't get me wrong. I would fucking love that. If we could actually get, like, another incarnate that's been locked up. Perhaps they've given up on that incarnate because it's just too hard to control a decay incarnate. That would be super cool. Also, thanks for the sub, Cube. Really appreciate that, bro. Welcome to the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. More incarnates? Oh, yeah. The incarnates are really cool. It's a cool enemy that's been introduced. Just to show us he's the leader of the storm. It's just there to make Razageth easier recognizable as boss. It could be. It's entirely possible. But then again, they already say that it's Razageth. So, you know, Nosdormu not being able to see his transformation into Morazon can only happen if he leaves all the timelines. What could cause that or make him leave the timelines? Mr. Unfamiliar, no, that's not entirely true, right? So I think the reason why Nosdormu cannot see the moment of his turn into Galakrond is because it splits. So I've actually figured out that Morazon can absolutely come into being without Nosdormu dying. The only thing that would be necessary for Morazon to be born and Nosdormu to turn into Morazon is for Nosdormu to embrace the infinity of time. Because in that moment, Nosdormu creates Morazon, because Morazon is the infinite aspect. So rather than just believing in the singular timeline, Morazon believes in the infinite timelines. He is the aspect of the infinite timelines. And he can literally create because Nosdormu splits. So in the moment that Nosdormu tries to split the timelines, in that moment he remains Nosdormu, but at the same time becomes Morazon. So he himself splits into two characters, Nosdormu and Morazon, if that makes sense. You think that Nefarian used the same Shadow Flame as the one we have now, or was it just a mechanic? I think the Shadow Flame that was added was just given lore. I think it's the exact same. So who uses the Shadow Flame? It's Warlocks, right? Warlocks have Shadow Flame. It makes so much sense that Warlocks would use Shadow Flame as well, because Warlocks are beings of foul. They literally dive into the foul. The foul is nothing but light and void mixed in order to create the foul. So the Council of the Black Harvest, who, for those of you that don't know any Warlock lore, all Warlock magic comes from the Council of the Black Harvest. The Council of the Black Harvest decides what types of magic is okay for Warlocks to wield and what types of magic is off limits to Warlocks. They are also the council that explores new types of magic. So whenever new abilities are added into World of Warcraft, these abilities are added because the Council of the Black Harvest discovered these new abilities and then taught them to warlocks. So your warlock literally learns from the Council of the Black Harvest. So it's entirely possible that the Council of the Black Harvest discovered this new element on Azeroth called Shadow Flame and decided to just utilize that in their own way, right, as a new form of magic. Yet it is still the same. I believe that all Blizzard did this expansion was they gave Shadow Flame an actual canonical reason for existing. That's my belief, at least. I think he willingly turns when he realized that the depth of the Titans' control and betrayal, shit goes to shit, and he says, fuck it, and fuck you, Titans. I would love if that is actually the case, but I don't think so. The dragons, I don't think, have the ability to really turn against the Titans. Nalfarian could only do it once he was so corrupted by the old gods that he could no longer really remember the order of the Titans that had been inscribed upon him. But for all of the other aspects, I would highly doubt that they would have that free will to really turn against the Titans, as it were. But it is entirely possible, because the way he turns into Morozond is by resisting his own death. And then Morozond is born from that, right? Yeah, he literally says, Amanthul, what have I seen? What I have seen. So he sees that he becomes Morozond. And what it could be is a rejection. So when he rejects the future as the Titans see it. So you have to think about this, right? Amanthul is the father of time. Amanthul is the one that blessed Nosdormu, by the way. He's also the father of Odin, but never mind that. Amanthul, father of time, believes in a singular timeline. He believes that all of the other timelines are simply noise. They're unnecessary. The only timeline that matters is the one timeline, and that happens to be the timeline that they exist on. So a quick fact for all of you: while the Titans can see the other timelines, and while Amanthul can move on the other timelines, the Titans do not exist on all of the timelines equally. If that makes sense. Amanthul exists only in the main timeline. He does not exist in the other timelines. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other Titans that exist in the other timelines. There are, but they are not the same Titans. Each timeline has their own Titans, and Amanthul believes that our timeline is the true timeline. So when Nosdormu rejects the idea that this true timeline requires of him to die, that might actually be the thing that sparks the birth of Morozond, right? Because Nosdormu rejects the idea of this being the true timeline and instead embraces the idea that he can change his time, right? He can change the timeline. And in changing the timeline, he fractures the timeline, which then creates Morozond as a result of this. That would be the way that I see it. But old gods do exist. We don't know. We only know that the Titans do not exist across all timelines. We don't actually know how this would be for the Void Lords or for the old gods. Again, we know that there are old gods on other timelines. We saw that with the Bronze Dragonflight questline. The question would be, is the N'Zoth that we saw during the Bronze Dragon Black Empire questline, is that N'Zoth the same N'Zoth that we fought in our prisons? Because that N'Zoth does say, I know you. I know what you have done. Even though that N'Zoth is on a separate timeline, therefore that N'Zoth would not know us. Right? So, it gets confusing, but that's effectively what this boils down to. The question at the end of the day becomes, it would make sense for the Titans to have a Titan for each of the timelines because they are so highly ordered. Whereas it would not necessarily make sense for the Void to do the same because they are so heavily embracing... they embrace chaos so much more. Be the remnants of the Spirit Plane. It's entirely possible, Dogamo. It is possible. Solomon, we have no idea. The reason we believe that we went to a different timeline and we didn't go back in time is because of the Murloc. The Murloc timeline in that quest chain. So the Murloc timeline in that quest chain suggests that we did not visit... Oh, actually, not just that. There is a canonical reason why we know we visited other timelines. We did not go back in time. Our timeline, the true timeline, may never be interfered with. There is no way in hell the Bronze Dragons would ever send us back in time to our timeline's Black Empire. No chance in hell. It would never happen. It's not allowed to happen. Chromie and Eternus were tunneling and falling through the timelines. They weren't falling on our timeline. Our timeline is off limits. They're not allowed to fuck with our timeline. But that's exactly how Morazon gets born. And the only way I can see Morazon being born is if it's not Nosdormu's life that's in danger, but rather all of the flights who are in danger. Nostalgia? So, the one timeline could be either a remnant of that ordered way of thinking, right? That closed-mindedness that comes from Amanthul and the Titans, because they are very close-minded in the way they look at things. Or it could just be that that's how fate willed it. Now, if you guys think back, did I do this on Twitch or did I do this on YouTube? I get confused. I used paint to explain to you guys how I think all of the timelines came into being. When did I do that? Was that on YouTube or was that on Twitch? Can you guys remember? Was it on Twitch? That kind of makes sense. I spend a lot more time on Twitch talking about World of Warcraft, even though technically we can talk about anything on Twitch, but never mind. I can show you guys again, just for good measure, in case anyone wants to see it and you guys aren't on Twitch. All right, so the way I view the timelines, right? So this is our timeline, right? This is the main timeline, as you guys can see here. And this is the start of the main timeline, right? And this is whatever end exists for the main timeline. Now, the main timeline at the start, at the finish, it exists sort of within... how do I put this? It exists sort of in the same... At the same time, everywhere, all at once, is where it exists, right? So, Amanthul... Let's just make Amanthul here, right? So this is Amanthul. Amanthul can go to any point within this timeline if he wants to, right? He exists on this whole timeline from start to finish. However, they may never interfere in this timeline because this is the sacred timeline according to them. At the start of this timeline, there was nothing, according to the Titans. And then the Ocean of Light exploded, it created the Great Beyond, and all of us exist now on this singular timeline. Now, we might, if the Black Empire was, say, year, right? So the Black Empire was year. This was the Black Empire. And let's say after the Black Empire, the dragon aspects were born, say, year in the timeline, right? So this is the birth of the dragons, and maybe we're somewhere here on the timeline, right? So we exist on this timeline right over here. Let's say that the Nosdormu's fall, so where Nosdormu turns into Murozond, happens. I wish I could. Let's say it happens here, right? This is the moment that Nosdormu turns into Murozond. All right. Now, you will agree with me that at the moment before this arrow, the birth of Murozond, right? So Murozond is born over here, right? So at the birth of Murozond, everything before this, there is no Murozond, right? You guys would agree with that? No? Murozond isn't there because he hasn't been born yet. All right? But that's wrong. Because Murozond, like Nosdormu, exists on the timeline. So when Murozond is born, Murozond exists both from the start of the timeline to the end of the timeline, everywhere. So a lot of the happenings on our universe, Murozond could have had a hand in this, because he immediately exists everywhere all at once. That's where Murozond is right now. So here's my theory for how I think this all ends up happening. We'll remove this. So Murozond is born right here. What ends up happening is this is also coincidentally the moment the timelines snap. For the first time ever, instead of having just one timeline that exists in our universe, there now exists multiple timelines. The timelines have shattered into 1,000 pieces with the birth of Murozond. With the birth of Murozond, we have this now, right? It's created all of these various little timelines, and there's millions of them. I'm not going to draw all of them, but just imagine it goes all the way up, all the way down, millions upon millions of timelines, everything at the same time. But it only came into existence at the moment of Murozond's creation. So the second Murozond was created over here, it created these timelines. And now Murozond exists. Now these timelines extend from start to finish, right? These timelines now exist from the beginning. The Titans still hold true to the idea of just one timeline. For the Titans, this is still the main timeline. All of these other timelines that now exist as impersonators of the main timeline. These are not the true timelines of the universe. The only true timeline is the one in the middle. The others are to be resisted at all times because they did not exist at the start. It was not how the first ones intended them to be made. Only this one in the middle actually exists, right? Only this one actually exists, only the blue one. The black ones do not exist, not according to the Titans. Even though they were only created over here, right? This was the moment of their creation. It doesn't matter to the Titans. This is why they view this as the only one. And the way this is created is because Nosdormu, rather than doing the only thing that he's allowed to do, so what Nosdormu may do is at the moment of his death, he may go to a different timeline and go fuck around there, which wouldn't help because he would still die, but he is allowed to do that. Nosdormu decides not to do that. So what Nosdormu decides to do is, instead of dying as he is supposed to over here, right, accept your death and die in an honorable way, Nosdormu decides to go back ever so slightly. He goes back just a little to before whatever great calamity happened here, right? Whatever calamity took place here, he goes back to stop that from happening. Now, I've been thinking a lot about why he would do this. Why would he go back on the main timeline to fix something? Especially knowing that he will turn into Morozond. The only thing I can think of is that it's not his death that he's trying to stave off, but instead the death of the aspects as a whole. So imagine the cinematic. As Nosdormu lies there wounded, he looks over the battlefield. Alexstrasza, Kaligos, Marithra, Abyssian. They are all about to die. The incarnates have won. The aspects have made a fundamental mistake that have given Iridikron the ability to wipe them out. Nosdormu would happily accept his own death because he does not wish to turn into Morozond. But if he accepts his death, he also accepts the death of his fellow aspects. And this he is not willing to do. He would risk the creation of Morozond in order to save the rest of the flights. And it is this moment that he decides to go back from this to there. To change the mistake that they had made. And it is in this moment that the timelines shatter and we have these arcing timelines that now run fucking rampant all over the universe, basically doing their own shit. And this is the thing the Titans were trying to avoid with the creation of Morozond. But this is still the main timeline. This one right here is still the one that the Titans believe in. Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, it could be wrong, but that's sort of how I see it. Yeah, my theory is that. Always supposed to exist? Well, he exists because he must always exist, right? Because he does exist. That's it. Welcome to Doctor Strange 2. Pretty much, yes. No, I think the reason I like that theory is it's the most eloquent of theories. It explains why the Titans believe this to be the true timeline without it being some sort of like, because we said so bullshit, right? It is actually the true timeline, but it isn't the true timeline because the other timelines now do exist and therefore they exist, right? You can't change that anymore. It is what it is. You just have to accept that there are more. Of course, the Titans being eternally closed-minded, they will never accept that. This is just not how it works for them. This is the true timeline, and this is it. Get off my fucking lawn. Right? That's what they do. Patlin, how you doing? Ferroris, how you doing, bro? Didn't paint a dick today, Sag. We're on YouTube. I like to keep the dick paintings to Twitch. She's unable to take away life, and that will lead her to her downfall. I don't know if it's if Alexstrasza is actually incapable of taking life. I'm pretty sure she will, right? Oterdross, take care of yourself, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate it, bro. Well, there's so many Titan watcher areas in Zaralak, if it's supposed to just be an area that Notherian kept secrets. Yeah, that's a very good question, Nathan. Yeah, she's definitely not incapable. she doesn't like taking life, but she will take life in order to sort of preserve life, if that makes sense. But she definitely doesn't like taking life. What if he tried to prevent a void being or something more powerful than Morozond, which is why he would have rather risked it, perhaps when they activate the Oath Stones? It has to have something to do with the old gods, so you might actually be very correct there, because Morozond, the whole purpose of Morozond is to stop the Hour of Twilight from happening. Morozond is trying to stop the old gods from winning. What Morozond, of course, doesn't realize is that the old gods use him in order to basically fuck everyone. Sapphire Raven with the 10 community subs. Really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, hearts in chat. 10 community subs is yours. There's 10 new people now with membership, so I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if Alexstrasza is useless. She's pretty fucking OP, though. And she's got that very strong mommy energy going for her, so we will not be speaking ill of Alexstrasza in this stream. It's like Sylvanas. We don't speak ill of Sylvanas either in this stream. She's got the ass and the hips and the boobies to prove that she's a good character. I believe it. You believe you should have proof of having a beard? No. If you sub to this channel, you have a virtual beard. And that's really all that matters. Virtual beard and a virtual big pee-pee. You don't even have to have a real one. Thank you, Moles and Gothgos. Welcome. I think in order to she has issues, not as useless. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I think the Alexstrasza really annoys me. Especially in that cinematic where she's the first one to go, oh, it's cool now. It's just, it's just go on. Finally, you've taken care of all my problems. And it's like, have they really taken care of your problems? Like, pretty sure there might be more problems on the way, right? And I think that's sort of where the Titan influence comes from. The fact that the Titans, their ordered view is very much sort of pushed upon the dragon aspects in a way, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Looks down, hey babe. That's that dick energy coming through, nostalgia. You can feel it, can't you? Did you ever finish Space Marine? William, right up until the final boss, and then I lost my shit after dying a couple of times, so I will probably finish it, but I have seen the final cinematic. I'm literally on the final boss. I've seen the final cinematic. I know how it ends, but I have not physically killed the final boss. I'm waiting for Space Marine 2. Very excited for that. I'm over right now, for those of you that might be interested in this universe, I don't know. Do we have anyone here in chat that actually plays or cares about the 40k universe? How many 40k players do we have here? Even people that know anything about the 40k universe. Age of Sigmar here. Oh, fantasy. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The 40k universe, Warhammer. There's a game right now on Steam for those of you that might be interested in it, by the way. It's Warhammer 40k Gladius. Really cool game. I've played it a bit. It is super fun. And it's free right now. Free to keep on Steam. So if you log into Steam, you can literally just grab the game. Don't have to pay anything for it. And it is actually super fun. It's sort of like a mix between Civilization and a bit more real-time RTS kind of gameplay. It is turn-based, but at the same time, it's... I don't know. You'll have to play it. It's really fun. I've been playing it a shit ton. It's really cool. Been listening to second 5 years Bile Book. Super insane. Love it. A lot of Super Sag on Warhammer, I mean. Waiting for H. Cavill series. Do you have expectations of it? Of course. Henry Cavill is making... Bro, fuck. I bought 3 new books, though. I got access to these books Yes, the Saturday. New books that they had. Hold up. Quickly show you guys. Very excited. So this is probably the book that I've been waiting for most. Sapphire Raven, 6 months. Warrior of the Beard Man, really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Blue Dragonflight questline was amazing. Many old characters, old zone, emotions, unending, unended matters, getting a conclusion. Thank you for making those videos. It is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for resubbing, bro. Really appreciate it. So, there you go. Dark Angels. Dude, I've been looking for books on the Dark Angels for so long. And I found this bad boy on Saturday. Can't wait for the Lion's return. I also found this. I don't know what this book is about, but I found this book as well. Knight of Telesar. Akato Sicarius Omnibus. I don't know what the fuck it's about, but I buy all of the Warhammer books. Doesn't really matter which ones it is. And then the last one I found is this one. Hellwinter Gate. It doesn't look to be part of a series because there's nothing there, right? It's not like a 1 or a 2 or whatever. But it's, yeah, the Hellwinter Gate. So these are the books that I found for Warhammer. Still looking for the other books, though. Bam. Death God or Necrons? No. I don't support the Chaos Gods. You can fuck right off with that bullshit. It's 100% loyalist, bro. For the Emperor. Atranav, how you doing? Where's the Elemental Lord of Decay? Tell me, Echo. I wish I fucking knew, bro. Like, Eugene, you're asking hard questions. Why are you asking difficult questions? I've not really gotten into Warhammer Fantasy. I've been just crazy about 40k, though. For those of you that don't know, that are sort of super Blizzard fanboys, Star Wars or StarCraft was meant to be Warhammer 40k, and then they couldn't get the licensing for 40k, and they ended up making StarCraft. But a lot of the things that is in StarCraft is sort of watered down versions of Warhammer 40k. Cerberus, how you doing, bro? It's a big lie. I love the whole lore, but the deeper I go in the lore video, the more I side with the Chaos and Xenos. Hell no. That is just absolutely disgusting. I can't believe you're doing that. I'm judging the fuck out of you, bro. No. That's not right. That's just not right. Andrea, thank you so much for the sub. Really appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. Look for Wastehammer vids. I've watched Wastehammer. We watch a lot of Luton over on the stream. We react to Bricky, although we've only reacted to Bricky once. We watch a lot of Major Kill, though. Like, Major Kill is probably like the main guy that we react to over on Twitch. More confusing than the WoW story. Nostalgia, what? Nothing could be more confusing than the WoW story. All right, let me start you off. Imagine a universe, right, that consists of the entire galaxy. Right? That's the size of Warhammer 40k. The entire galaxy. Now imagine that every faction within this galaxy have stories that have literally nothing else to, or nothing to do with any of the other factions. Stories completely of their own. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It's just their story. You have gods that no longer exist, but then at the same time, their aftermath is still felt. You have literal gods that used to eat worlds that fought other gods that may or may not have created humans. And then imagine you have 4 chaos gods, of which only 3 existed, but 4 exist since the beginning of time, even though we know that the 4th was only created during the War in Heaven. And the War in Heaven was a fight between the Eldari, space elves, and the Necrons. And they caused so much shit that they sort of made the warp unstable. And with the warp becoming unstable, the Chaos Gods became Chaos Gods, even though they were gods before, but they weren't gods before. But then the Eldari started fucking and destroying things to the point where they fucked a god into existence, which is now Slaanesh. But then Slaanesh exists because they fucked him into existence. But according to the other Chaos Gods, Slaanesh has always existed, even though we know when Slaanesh came into existence. Then imagine that there are even more Chaos Gods, or at least beings that is trying to become Chaos Gods, but they're not Chaos Gods. And then there's things like fucking, there's Tyranids, which is like a hive mind invasionary force into our galaxy. We don't know where they come from in the galaxy or in the universe as a whole, but we know that they don't come from our galaxy. There's speculation that they may actually be running from something that is even more dangerous than them, because we know that there are creatures outside of our galaxy that is super fucking dangerous, right? And then you have humanity, or the Imperium, with the Emperor of Man, who is a dead god. Not quite dead, but kind of dead. He was killed by his son Horus. Horus is a Primarch that was genetically designed by the Emperor, 20 of them, but of the 20, 2 are gone. No one knows anything about the 2 that is gone. 9 of them turned to chaos. The other 9 remained loyal, but some of them are dead, some of them are missing. The 2 that we know of that is quite alive and well is Rabute Gilliman and Lionel Johnson. The Emperor died to Horus, his son, that killed him, and now the Emperor sits on a golden throne, basically guiding humanity through the warp, and is fed by 1,000 psychers a day, although that argument, a lot of people are arguing that no, it's actually more than 1,000 psychers a day. It's closer to like 15,000 psychers a day. Psychers, by the way, are magic users or warp casters. It's people that can use the warp to cast magic. They're sacrificed to keep the corpse god, the Emperor, alive. Then you have, within the Imperium of Man, you have the Inquisitors, because basically the Emperor of Man came to destroy all religion, but once the Emperor of Man died, he became a god to the people, and now there's a massive religion around him, and you have the Inquisitors that go around killing entire planets with exterminatus. It's like that, and right now, right after everything that I just explained, I have barely scratched like 2% of the universe. Right? Like all of that. I've basically just given you a small introduction of the actual universe, right? I've not even gone into detail on any of the fucking shit, because every one of the Primarchs have their own story, their own legions. Those legions have their own battles. Every single one of the Chaos Primarchs have their own stories, their own legions, their own battles. That you have to know. Within the Imperium, you have the Sororitas, right? The Sisters of Battle. You have the Silent Sisters. You have the Adeptus Mechanicus, which are like old school humans, but they have merged themselves with machines, and they believe in something called the Machine God, and they live on Mars, which is like a machine planet of sorts. But there may actually be a god that lives within Mars, but it doesn't. But we don't know, but there may be one. You have the guardsmen, the Imperial Guard, and they have their own stories, because there's more. It's like, fuck me. If you want to talk about a confusing and massive universe, it's Warhammer 40k. Like, that universe is just, it's confusing because of how large it is and how much goes into it. A good example of this, how many WoW books are there currently in the world? Like, how many WoW books are there? Has anyone ever counted? I think it's something like 40... I'm not fucking counting them on my Kindle. You guys can go fucking suck a dick. I'll just... How many World of Warcraft books are there? Here we go. 23 novels. So there's 23 novels. There are 7 parts of the Warcraft series and 16 parts of the World of Warcraft one. But all in all, it comes out to 23. Anyone, if you know this, please do not answer. If you know this, please do not answer. Take a guess how many books there are just in the Warhammer 40k universe. Just take a guess. 37, okay. At least 3, 120, 50, 69, 120. I believe the count right now is 370. Is it 370 or is it... It's close to 400 at this point. Books within the Warhammer 40k universe. Just in the Horus Heresy. So the Horus Heresy, which is what basically started the modern universe of Warhammer 40k, just the Horus Heresy contains something like 67 books or some shit already, if I'm not mistaken. It's stupid amounts of books. It's like fucking insane the amount of books that they have, right? They have so many authors that write as well. A lot of the guys that write for Warhammer 40k, you'll know from WoW, because they write for World of Warcraft as well. Like, a lot of the guys that write for Warhammer 40k, you would have read books of theirs that they wrote. One of my favorite authors within is it Dan or Gav? I can't remember now. Who wrote Dawn of the Aspects? Who wrote that again? Hold up, I have to check. Richard Knack. I saw a book of Richard Knack actually. He wrote for them as well. But there's a shit ton of sort of cross-pollination between the two universes. But a lot of the authors write for all of them. I think World of Warcraft could do more books if they wanted to explore the greater galaxy of WoW. So there is actually a world in which I think World of Warcraft could bring out immense amounts of books. If they really wanted to start exploring the universe of WoW that isn't in Azeroth, right? So if you started exploring the outer sort of the great beyond and things like that, I think World of Warcraft could bring out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books a year if they really wanted to. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, Warhammer is a lot older than World of Warcraft, and it does appear as if World of Warcraft sort of sticks to the game, and most of the books that come out needs to be tied to some extent to the game. Warhammer doesn't have those restrictions. People that make games within the Warhammer universe make those games in a certain point in the Warhammer universe, right? So you pick a time, you pick a faction, you make a game about that faction in that time. Because the universe is too large, you'd never be able to do a game about the whole universe. There would just not be enough time to play that game. I think WoW kind of brushes it under the rug, like, that didn't happen. What sword? The Dragon Ball clan story is, but this is the thing. I really hope, like, I was actually, I think a little, because there was a massive thing on Twitter, right, where people were really upset about the consort story from Malygos being kept in the game. Like, people were genuinely upset that Blizzard kept that part in the game, because effectively Malygos did enslave dragons to basically be his sex slaves, for lack of a better word, and people wanted that to basically have been removed from the game. I was actually quite happy that it wasn't removed from the game, just because I do think that games should deal with hard topics, right? I think art should deal with topics of evil, you know? Just pure evil shit that most of us go, fuck, that is just wrong. But if you deal with it correctly and you make people think, that's what art is for, right? Why else would you have art? The whole point of art is to make you think. It's to challenge you. So I do think keeping, like, seriously... There's a lot of seriously disturbing shit in World of Warcraft, right? Throughout its history, there's a lot of seriously disturbing shit, and I do think taking those out would actually make WoW lose a lot of what makes it special. I remember watching... I saw that. I haven't watched it, but I saw that. Slaughter and Sakes? Fuck you, Ferorius. I'm tired of those Twitter wieners wanting to just disappear. Any challenging topic, they want us to hug the villain at the end, like I don't think it's that. I think in the modern era, there's just a lot of people that want clear-cut lines between this is evil, this is good. And life is very rarely like that, right? It's very rare that you meet someone that is just pure evil. In fact, I would argue that most of you in this channel have never met any human being that is just pure evil. It's very rare. Even the most evil of people have a gray side to their personality, something that, you know, you might not think is that evil if you really knew them. And I think it's important to have those moments in specifically stories. Should have those gray moments within character progressions. Hey, wieners. Oh yeah, I don't want them out. I want more on it, basically. It feels unsettled, almost. Closure. Yeah, you're on point right now. I do think that's one thing that Blizzard sometimes struggles with, right? They're very good. So, for example, take the consort story with Maligos, right? Perfectly fine to have that in there, but no conclusion towards the end of that, right? The story does not get explored more to really reach some kind of conclusive end to dealing with that specific thing. And that might be something that Blizzard needs to look into. It's perfectly fine if you want to use highly questionable actions within World of Warcraft, but then you have to deal with those highly questionable things in such a way that they are dealt with, right? That they do reach conclusion. I don't know if that's maybe just a restriction on WoW as a whole. Like, it might actually just be like a restriction, right? It's just how WoW is written. It's almost always going to have those restrictions within it because it's all sort of always gameplay first. But yeah, overall, I do hope that that's not the case. Like, I really hope that that isn't the case. Yeah, what do you guys think is going to happen with that sword? FYI. Do you guys have any sort of thoughts on the sword and what's going to happen there? I'm just going to move on. It feels very well. That happened. Okay, what's next? Like, wait, that was super big. What the fuck? We're just moving on, pretty much. Okay, don't fucking give me the what sword, you assholes. You know exactly what I'm asking. Jesus. Everyone in chat immediately going, what sword? What are you talking about, bro? You guys know exactly what sword I'm talking about. This is not Ian. Don't fucking roleplay Ian. I want an actual answer from you guys. What do you think is going to happen with the sword? Likes it, leave her alone to enjoy it. I didn't see no sword. If the Titans are not our friends anymore, then they are still out there. Not anymore. I don't think the Titans have ever been our friends. But it's got nothing to do with anymore. I don't think the Titans are our friends, period. The only way... So you would need a very big being to remove that sword. It's either one of the Titans comes back to remove that sword, or a Void Lord takes up the sword, or Azeroth takes the sword. But that's really the only way, like, it's the only way it can happen. Because that sword is too large for any of us to remove. No. If anything, I think it's going to be the opposite, Raphael. I can see Sargeras finally showing Illidan that he was wrong. Like, that's how I can see it happen. Because I genuinely... So there's a question in World of Warcraft. It was actually something that I wanted to include in the Shill show today. But we kind of ran out of time. I don't want to make the Shill shows too long. But there's a problem that I have with the characters in World of Warcraft. How do I explain this? So, Sargeras, considered to be the most wise of all of the Titans, as well as a great warrior, and also one of the only ones that isn't just sitting in the Pantheon, but actually out there in the real world doing the hard work. Sargeras realizes that there is something very, very wrong within the system, and that the system needs to change, right? Zuval, the only one of the Eternal Ones that actually have any sort of real connection with the outside world, realizes that there is something wrong and that it needs to change. Nalfarian, the only one of the aspects with a genuine curiosity of how the world operates, and we see this throughout all of his experiments and all of his facilities. He had a very genuine interest in the operations of the universe and how everything is put together, and also considered to be one of the wisest of all of the aspects. And he ends up falling to madness. He ends up turning against the plan. He realizes that there is something wrong with the plan. Why do every character of wisdom, every character of intelligence, why do they inevitably realize that the system is flawed? Because this is a constant theme that keeps repeating itself in World of Warcraft. It's constantly the ones that look beyond the veil, the ones that's dealing with the true evil, right? So all of the other, look at the dragon aspects. Alexstrasza was hyper-focused on the continuation of the dragon lines, right? She oversaw the ruby life pools where all the eggs would go to be hatched and to be infused with all the order magic. Maligos was obsessed with collecting magical artifacts and understanding the ley lines of Azeroth. And that's what he kept himself busy with, within the plans of the Titans. Nosdormu kept himself busy with the timelines and making sure that the timelines operate as it should within the confines of the Order of the Titans. Ysera kept herself busy with the Dream. Nalfarian was tasked with the safeguard and protection of Azeroth, having to look into the darkness, into the deepest recesses of the enemies of Azeroth, and having to understand them so that he could kill them. He comes to the conclusion that there is something very, very wrong within the system, and that the system needs to be changed, right? Sargeras. All of the other Titans are spending their time on the Pantheon looking for other Titan worlds. Sargeras is tasked with fighting the demons. And he goes from planet to planet destroying the demons, eventually realizing that the demons keep, according to the Titans now, keep regenerating, and therefore decides to imprison them. It's then that he finally discovers, so his job again is to safeguard the universe against its genuine threats. But upon seeing the genuine threats of the universe, Sargeras realizes that the system itself needs to change and therefore needs to be destroyed. Zuval is the Arbiter. He sees every soul that comes into the Shadowlands, sees their entire existence, the way they died, the way they lived, the way they were born, and then decides which afterlife they should go to. In seeing a soul or a group of souls, Zuval realizes that the system is flawed and needs to change. Why is it that all of the characters that is tasked with looking beyond the order of things views a flaw within the system itself? And that flaw doesn't just make them want to slightly tweak the system. It makes them want to destroy the system. Why? That's a genuine big question that I think needs to be answered at some point. I don't have the answer for you guys now, but it's clear that whatever the system is, whatever system we have now, is fucking flawed. Like, something is wrong with the system. I can't say what it is, but it's clear that whatever the first ones did here isn't operating the way that it's supposed to operate. And the fact that you have so many of these beings that want to upset and change that system suggests that the system itself might actually be flawed. Like, maybe they have a point, right? You might not necessarily agree with the point, but they might have a point, right? I don't think they want to change it because it's flawed, but because they don't like the way that things are. Domago, that would not be true, because all of them decided to change the system only once they started to see flaws within it. Sargeras didn't just wake up one day and go, you know, fuck this system, let's just kill everything. It was after Sargeras learned about the Void Lords, according to the Titans, and he realized that the system itself would not protect them against the Void Lords, that he decided to destroy the system, because the system was not operating the way that it was supposed to operate. Zuval didn't just decide one day that he was sort of tired of being the Arbiter. Zuval warns us at the end and says that a universe divided will not stand, and you are not ready for what is to come. So he too saw something within the system that cannot survive what is to come. So it wasn't just a case of, I don't like it anymore, I'm tired, I'm gonna fucking kill everything. Nostalgia, exactly that, yes. So I think the Lord of Shadowlands was good, but the story was absolute dog shit. The lore was really good. The only problem I have with Shadowlands is twofold, right? So on the one hand, Shadowlands was rushed beyond repair. There was just no way that Shadowlands was ever going to be good, considering the amount of rush that was placed upon Shadowlands. And the second thing that I really hated about Shadowlands is how it diminished death. I think it was just the wrong choice. I don't think, because death lost something with Shadowlands. I don't know. I think Shadowlands could have been handled better, but at the end of the day, Blizzard tried it. It was bold. It didn't quite work. I think if they slowed it down, if they had Shadowlands sort of take place over 2 expansions, it may actually have been much, much better. But at the end of the day, I still like a lot of the lore that was introduced in Shadowlands. I still think there's a lot of things that was introduced lore-wise in Shadowlands that could have massive effects in the future. So there's nothing wrong with that part of it. Connected to Sargeras through Dreadlords? Hose, we don't know. Because what we have is that the Titans told us that it was the Dreadlords that told Sargeras about the Void. But it's also the Titans that said it's the Void. Now, we already know the Titans lie a lot. Right? Like, we already know this. It's not a mystery to us. The Titans lie to us. They admit it straight up that they lie to us. So the question becomes, What if the thing that Sargeras was actually afraid of is something the Titans consider to be too sensitive for us to know about? So the Titans decided to make it the Void, even though it's not actually the Void. That's not actually what Sargeras was afraid of. It has nothing to do with the Void. Because the Void doesn't seem to be our enemy. It's not a friend, that's for sure. But the Void itself does not appear to actually, quote-unquote, hate us. Did I just do... No? AJ, I didn't. I've been literally streaming and talking lore the whole time. I'm not even logged into WoW at the minute. They think Azeroth is going to be corrupted by old gods inevitably. Yeah, don't even get me started on the whole Azeroth thing, because I don't even think Azeroth herself is a Titan. Someone had your name, that's why I asked. Wait, there's someone else called Accolonn? That's weird. That's very weird. I know there is a Death Knight that's called Accolonn, but I'm not sure if there's anyone else called Accolonn. Was a priest, though? Alright. Yeah, the only character I have that's called Accolonn is my Warlock. Like, all of my other characters are, like, uniquely named. Well, no, I say uniquely named. Some of them have horrible names, but only Accolonn is called Accolonn. When Kingsmourn was created, we see the jailer pull out Arthur's soul and forge it within the sword. Do you think there is a soul in Frostmourne? Maybe Galakrond's hunger? There's definitely a soul in Frostmourne. We already know that Frostmourne is a rune blade, and we already know that rune blades are made with souls. You cannot have a rune blade without a soul inside of it. That's what makes it a rune blade. What is in Frostmourne? That we don't know, right? That's completely up, open debate. Does Anduin have it wandering around? Not really. Anduin doesn't have Frostmourne. Anduin had Shalamourne, and Shalamourne was freed by Anduin of its corruption. Connect the dots over Azeroth of the Forges. I mean, you can do that. See how it goes, Kimmy? By the way, how many of you are going to play Diablo 4? Domago, I reject the word Kingsmourn. It's Shalamourne. It was such a missed opportunity from Blizzard. Just another example of how it was completely wrong in Shadowlands. It's Shalamourne, not Kingsmourn. Kingsmourn is a stupid name. Shalamourne is a good name. Never touching anything Diablo franchise related ever again? Why not? I'm super hyped for D4. I think it's going to be super cool. I mean, we're definitely going to be playing it on stream. Absolutely. Everyone knows it is Kingsmourn. Yeah, but everyone is wrong about it being Kingsmourn. What happened to Shalamourne? It's with Anduin. Nostalgia, no. I have not seen the video, the cinematic book of Lorath, but we'll probably watch it on stream tomorrow or maybe the day after. But we will watch it. Also, one must not forgive nor forget. Franchise dead. Dark Streamer, I don't agree with that. Blizzard made a mistake with Diablo Immortal, one that they're probably still paying for. But as long as this one isn't as scumbag, I don't mind, right? Look, at the end of the day, here's the thing. Blizzard is a corporation. These corporations are incredibly greedy and they want to make a lot of money. If Blizzard can make all of their money out of mobile games, I fully support that. The mobile gaming community is stupid as fuck. They will spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on useless games because, well, they're not They're not used to anything better. And if that means that PC games are actually left the fuck alone to just be good, make more mobile games, bro. Like, fuck, Blizzard, bring out 5, 6, 7 mobile games a year if you have to. Just don't put that shit in our PC games. And right now, Diablo 4 doesn't appear to have any sort of weird, like, monetization stuff. Yeah, it has the battle pass. We already knew that was gonna be there, so it doesn't really matter. But all in all, it seems like you buy the game, you get the game, and you can play the game. It is a live service game, so the battle pass I can actually forgive. They do need to make money somehow. We'll see how many cosmetics there are, but as long as nothing is pay to win, again, I think that's perfectly fine. As long as everything is just cosmetic and there's no pay to win elements, I'd be happy. The second there is a pay to win element, I'll just quit the game. I don't care. I'm going to be playing it for the story mostly anyways. I'm not really someone that keeps playing the game into perpetuity at max level. I care about the story, and as soon as I've seen the story, everything else is just sort of buying time. Mankind Jack, how you doing, bro? Games make money. They will never again be left alone. True, but at the same time, there is a limit. There's a bunch of gaming companies that have recognized that now and have realized that there is a limit. I mean, look at EA. EA was actually flabbergasted that Star Wars The Last Jedi sold as well as it did because EA was convinced that single-player games are dead and that unless they put like massive monetization options into the game, they'll never be able to make money. Then they bring out Star Wars The Last Jedi, and it fucking sells massively well. Like, it just does so well, it blows EA away. Like, literally, Andrew Wilson himself admitted this. He was like, holy shit. We did not expect this game to do as well. Suggesting that there are, like, the industry is starting to wake up and realizing that you can make money from video games without monetizing them to hell and back, right? And that mobile games is far easier to monetize up to the wazoo. Nostalgia, I think the reason Blizzard had the immense amount of blowback that they did, right, because of Diablo Immortal, is people expected more from Blizzard. And that is something that we're all going to have to just accept, right? The old Blizzard that we used to know, the old Blizzard that we remember, that Blizzard truly is dead. I remember reading on Twitter, there's a developer that used to work at Blizzard. He was actually one of the, I think he was the lead guy on Vanilla WoW. He was one of the leads for Vanilla World of Warcraft. And he actually said, Mike Morheim used to have a saying where he would tell them, as soon as they would start talking about like monetization, he would always tell them, don't be greedy. First, think about how we can make the game fun. And once we've made the game fun, once the game is fun, we can try and figure out whether or not we can monetize it in some way, shape, or form. But his number one rule was always don't be greedy. So just monetize it enough. If just selling the game will make enough money, then we just sell the game. That's it. Obviously, Bobby Kotick is very different. Bobby Kotick's saying is, let's be greedy. And when the guys come to him and go, oh, we have this really cool idea, Bobby Kotick immediately asks, but how do I monetize this? So I think actually what Bobby Kotick's perfect world would be monetization first. So we first come up with a way to monetize a game, and then we just build a game around the monetization options. But that's Bobby Kotick, right? It's at the token. It's a gorgeous game, but now I'm good. Games are no longer made by gamers with passion because now they have investors that accept and only care about the money. They are not their own bosses anymore. This is one of the reasons I still have so much respect for Gabe Newell. I don't know if you guys, like, most of you should know who Gabe is. He's the owner of Steam. Did you guys know that to this day, Steam is completely privately owned? I kid you not. Steam does not have investors. You can't buy shares in Steam. And when he was asked, why would you not list Steam? Because listing Steam would instantly make billions upon billions of dollars. Can you imagine how much money Steam is worth? Like, if he listed Steam, he would be, he would probably become one of the richest people in the world ever if he listed Steam. And his reasoning was, when you have investors, you can no longer do what you want. I mean, what a good fucking answer is that? Like, right now, they can literally do whatever the fuck they want. If they want to make a specific game, they can make that game. If they don't want to make a game, they don't have to make the game. He doesn't have to go to the investors and be like, can I do this? So you guys going to be angry if we waste a shit ton of money on bullshit? Have a feeling if he retires, that will change. Maybe, maybe not. Depends if it stays in the family, right? I remember the news as well, Kimmy. Back then I was too young though, so I didn't really think anything of it. It's just like, oh, yeah. Blizzard's going public, who gives a shit? If it stays in the family, hopefully he raised these kids with that exact same sort of standoffish relationship with investors. That idea of, never mind, we're good. Not only that, but Steam already makes more than enough money that I don't think you have to list it in any way, shape, or form. It's good. It makes good money. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna go. It's been an honor and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much to all of you for hanging out, for spending your morning, your afternoon, whatever time it is of the day. If I may ask to hit the like button, because it really does help out a ton. If you missed the show, it should be available tomorrow. I usually just wait for YouTube to finish encoding the stream, because it usually takes 12 plus hours for that shit to happen. But yeah, this will be available tomorrow for all of you that may want to watch it again. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Please tell me if you're buying. If I'm buying Diablo, it's going to be the cheapest version possible. Simple as that. Buying the cheapest version possible. I'm going to go grab some food. I'm going to chill out. Probably play some Gladius or whatever. I should be live tomorrow on Twitch for those of you that want to watch. Just click the link in the description down below. Go follow me on Twitch. I'm not yet sure what we're going to be doing tomorrow on Twitch, but I should be live there. It all depends on editing and whatnot. But yeah, I will see all of you hopefully tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other. Be good to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace out, fam.